This is pretty much just going to be me talking mess about brands and their new releases for like 10 minutes straight. Cool? Cool. So here's the tea. I woke up this morning to the sound of non-stop jackhammering, left for my day, came back, and that jackhammering is still happening. It was still going when I got back home. It continued through the entire time that I was beating this face, and it is still going right now. So it seems that I've got no choice but to just power through and record despite the noise. I'm hoping and praying that it sounds far louder and worse to me than it will to you guys, but I have to film this today because today's video is actually a collab. My YouTube friend in my head, Whitney Hedrick, is someone who I've been watching for quite a few months now after she came up in my suggestions, and she was a woman after my own heart, someone who has managed to pretty much crawl out of the entire makeup mania, buy, spend lifestyle. And we are both very much committed to using the makeup we already have and not falling for it when these brands try to trick us into buying new crap. So imagine my surprise when I'm at home loving her channel and she shouted me out in one of her videos. Long story short, we connected on Instagram, she slid into them DMs, suggested a collab, and here we are today. So make sure you check out Whitney's channel because it is great. I will link her video right here where she is doing her good, bad, and ugly of the latest fall releases. Because I know myself, after taking a look at the current crop of new releases, I was just like, if I just pick willy-nilly, I will be sitting here for an hour plus just roasting these brands. So instead, I gave myself a bit of a guideline of the absolute worst 5 of the current fall releases, as well as bringing in some positivity with things that I think are cool and interesting and fun, and how I'm talking myself down from buying them. So while Whitney's and my formats are a little bit different, we're both mostly just talking about the dumpster fire that is the current slate of fall makeup releases. And if you notice my voice sounds a little bit more deep and hoarse than normal, it's because I was away for the weekend. I went to see Janet Jackson in concert and I was pretty much screaming the entire time, so that's why I sound like this. Why don't we start with the negatives? Let me get the bad stuff out of the way first, and then at the end we can end on a nice positive note when I talk about things that have actually tickled my pickle. The first item of garbage amongst these fall releases is pretty much anything from the Kardashian-Jenners. I can't quite recall exactly what's coming out, but I know both Kim Kardashian and that Kylie child have things coming out. Now listen, I've been pretty straightforward with how I feel about that family, so pretty much whenever they have a new makeup release and I happen to hear about it, my response is, if you're a Kardashian lover, you go Glen Coco, you live your life. I'm sure their makeup is great if you're about to film a tape with Ray J, but for me personally, I couldn't even be bothered to download the photos to include in this here video, so let's just move on because, long story short, that family will never be getting a dime from your girl T. The next item is an easy pass because it's another brand that I don't support, and that is Too Faced. Of course, I continue to use the Too Faced items that I purchased pre-Rich Lives Matter, but I have not and will not purchase from them again after that. Not least of all for this collaboration that they're doing with Madonna, or maybe it's already out, who knows, who cares? Much like every single release from the Kardashian-Jenners, this is extremely boring and unoriginal and unnecessary. To be fair, I can't say I can ever remember Madonna wearing neon green eyeshadow or anything all that unique or interesting. She tends to go for more classic wearable glam. It's just strange to me that Too Faced even collaborated with Madonna at all because, for one thing, all of their products and packaging for the most part are extremely juvenile, so I don't know where Madonna would fit into that aesthetic, let alone that demographic that they're actually selling to. I'm just not really sure who's excited for this, except maybe Madonna's super fans who are just going to collect it and not actually use the stuff. Anyway, this whole collection with Too Faced and Madonna, I just feel like it's boring. You're boring. They may as well send this stuff straight to the shelves of TJ Maxx at a deep discount because that's where it belongs. Next up, we have yet another monochromatic palette from Colourpop. For the love of Ray J. A lot of Ray J talk today. I mean, how many monochromatic palettes are they planning to release? Because they all look the same at this point. More importantly, these are all going to look the same on the eyes. They already did a purple monochromatic palette last year. We didn't need a lilac one too. It's going to look the same when you wear it. Any looks that you can achieve with one, you can pretty much approximate with the other. So I don't think the fact that, oh, it's cheap, it's only 12 bucks, 15 bucks, whatever they cost, that is not a reason to stack up all of these different Colourpop monochromatic palettes. I am fatigued. I am tired of seeing all of these. It's not cute anymore. I actually love monochromatic palettes, and I do think that when you have a very clear vision of a color story, it can be very inspiring. But Colourpop has done it to death. When you're at a point where you literally have two versions of a red palette or two versions of a pink palette or two versions of whatever color, you're doing too much. Despite the fact that purple is in fact my power color, I have zero interest in this lilac palette, and I also don't want the purple one because it actually has turned me off to the purple one now. Like somehow them repeating the same thing slightly different has made me not want any of it. Next up we have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Novena palettes, which I just learned shortly before filming there's already 3 of them, even though the second one isn't even out as of today. That's right, almost immediately after the Jackie Aina palette, the first Novena Pro palette volume 1, whatever the hell they're called, came out, and they already have a second one and a third one on the way. And again, you would think that first one with all the purples would be up my alley because I do like purple, but when I look at that palette, I find no inspiration whatsoever. In fact, it looks like 2 separate palettes crammed into one because the top 3 or so rows are cohesive, but too cohesive because it's a lot of same, where there's a lot of shades in there that are essentially identical to other shades in the palette, where they're all gonna look the same on the eye. Yet again, same thing I said earlier. Much like with Colourpop, there's not enough difference in these shades that you actually need 4 different, slightly different versions of the same colors. And then the bottom rows of volume 1 are just like, what is this? It actually reminds me of that old lipstick palette that nobody wanted from Anastasia back in the day. The bottom couple of rows of the palette look like they belong somewhere else, and I really just don't like how they look at all. Those colors do absolutely nothing for me. It makes it a very easy hard pass. And the color story for volume 2, again, too much of the same, too big a palette for my liking. I actually find it less inspiring when I have too much to work with because then I kind of don't know what direction I want to go in. I kind of like more curated palettes that are more focused. And the same goes for volume 3. It's just too much makeup, and it's too much makeup that I don't need and that I don't even want. I suppose an argument can be made that these are for pros because they're being marketed as pro palettes and pigments. I don't even know if they're calling them eyeshadows. They might be calling them pigments. However, when I think of pro palettes, I think of Viseart, where in real circumstances, you wouldn't even have shimmers and mattes in the same palette because even one little flake of mica getting in your matte will show up on camera and can mess up your entire look if you're on a shoot. More to the point, I don't think of ABH as a pro brand per se. I do think that it's a bit disingenuous when they try to act like these things are geared toward pros when they very much are deeply in that Instagram baddie makeup scene. I think that is the bulk of their consumer base, not pros per se. When I think of pro brands, I think more Ket, Makeup Atelier, even MAC and Makeup Forever before I think of ABH. Considering that ABH will have released something like 4 palettes in 2 months if we count the Jackie Aina palette with these Norvina ones, it's just too much too fast in my opinion. And also, I'm not particularly inspired by these, like I said, so it's an easy and a hard pass on them all. The next easy and hard pass for me is the Morphe 3503 palette. Need I say more? Now, this was supposed to be my best 5 and worst 5 of new releases, but I honestly couldn't even find 5 things that I was remotely interested in, so I have a 6th before we move on to the stuff that I actually think is kind of good and innovative and I'm actually somewhat interested in, if not very interested in. So the 6th thing that is an easy hard pass is the Fenty Diamond Bomb 2 collection. They've done a second version of the Fenty Diamond Bomb. They came out with one of these last year, which I actually have. It's fine. I don't use it all that much because it's a little bit too glittery, more shiny than what I tend to go for. This one is described as a hollow pink sparkle, and they're marketing as something that you can use for face and body, but honestly, that's true about any highlighter, or for that matter, any makeup that you have. And then the other item is a liquid roll-on 3D glitter for face and body. The roll-on more so than the powder is what makes this a hard pass for me because I just have no use for this. I just know that that would be a complete waste of money for me. Girl, I ain't going to Burning Man. Anytime I see items like this that are so specific and not something that you can use terribly often unless you were living some type of life that I know nothing about. I just don't think it's worth it to spend a lot of money, Fenty caliber, Sephora caliber coin on a body glitter. When it comes to body glitter, that's just something I fundamentally don't believe anyone should be spending a lot of money on. I mean, I don't know. I don't know your life. Maybe you are wearing body glitter on the daily basis and you can see some value in having a prestige brand of body glitter. But for me, that is way too specific and way too silly to spend any considerable coins on. I feel like there are a million DIY videos on making your own body glitter, even if you wanted to, on YouTube. So just do that if you really are jonesing for some body glitter. Don't spend $20, $30 on some body glitter just because it's a Fenty one. Let's crawl out of the dumpster and start talking about things that I actually think are good and that I kind of want, and one thing that I'm actually definitely going to buy. Let's kick things off with the Hourglass holiday collection though, because this almost made it into the hard pass category, and I'll tell you why. Hourglass comes out with these holiday palettes every year. They're a little bit different every year, and each year they tend to have exclusive shades within it as well as shades that we've seen before. I've purchased some of these Hourglass holiday palettes in the past and I love them. However, this one, which is the Ghost Ambient edit, is to me perhaps their worst one ever. Because when I look at the shades in it, I'm thinking they must have called it the Ghost palette, because if you have even a little melanin in your skin, it will have you looking like a ghost. I think this is the lightest holiday edit I've ever seen them do, and it's almost just like, well, if you're slightly tan, go f yourself, Merry Christmas. And I'm a whole ass black lady, so there's just nothing for me here. They also have a blush palette with 4 shades for holiday. They're claiming that it is 3 new shades and only 1 pre-existing shade, which is Brilliant Nude, and that's actually the blush that I'm wearing right now. It is an all-time personal favorite, but that's not even true, and I'm not sure why they lied about it, but one of the shades, I believe it's called Surreal Flush, was in their Surreal Ambient Lighting Edit palette, which was from holiday, I think 2 years ago, and I have that, which means I own 2 of the 4 blushes in this palette, which makes it an easy pass. They also have a trio of these scattered light shadows, which I've been wanting to try, and this does look really pretty. 2 of these shades are permanent shades, and then there's 1 shade that's exclusive to the set. I like that they're smaller in size as well compared to the normal scattered light shadows, because that's just the kind of thing that I don't see myself ever getting through anyway, because, I would see myself just dabbing it on top when I want like a very sparkly festive look, but not something I'm using up a ton. And they also have some lippies in this collection for holiday, but I just straight up don't care about them at all. I don't know. It doesn't go any farther than that. I'm just not excited by them. I don't care. So it was pretty easy to talk me down from this, not least of all because of the repeat / overlap with things I already have / wondering how much use I'd actually be able to get out of some of these items. But 2, I'm actually pretty salty about just how not inclusive that Ghost palette is. It really rubs me the wrong way, and I think I'm trying to be much more mindful of not just being like, well, it's dark enough for me whenever I do buy from these brands. Because that's definitely something that I'm guilty of, and I've been pretty candid with you guys about that, where I oftentimes will just accept, well, I'm the darkest shade and they need to do something about that, and then I'll still purchase the product. And in doing so, I'm supporting brands that are not inclusive in the way that they should be, because if I'm the darkest shade in anything, they have work to do. And when it comes to this Ambient Ghost edit, I can use maybe 1 or 2 of the shades in there, but most of those powders are just going to make me look casket ready. A lot of you guys know that I've loved Hourglass for a long time, but this release has really rubbed me the wrong way. So I'm going to have to keep my good eye on them. The next thing that actually interested me, but that I have managed to talk myself down from, is the new Melt Radioactive palette. Melt just came out with this palette. It's all kind of bright neon type of shades, and it is exactly the kind of thing that I would love, that is different from things that I have in my collection, except for the fact that I have the original Melt Radioactive stack, and the first 4 shades in this palette are identical to what was in that stack. Melt is one of the brands that I am always keeping my eye on. It's one of the few brands that I actually follow on Instagram, and I find them to be a very exciting, innovative brand. I feel like they know exactly who their customer is. I feel like they come up with extremely unique color stories and just eyeshadow colors in general. And I really do love the brand. But the fact that they straight up lifted a pre-existing stack and put it in this palette and then just expanded it to add new shades instead of just coming up with new neon shades for this palette, I feel like it's a bit of a you to their older customers. Like, it's cute for you if you didn't buy that stack or you're just new to melt or whatever, but it just really kind of gets on my nerves. Because I guess the expectation is that we're meant to just buy this palette all over again just so we can get 4 new colors. And I just ain't that type of bitch, at least not today. Next up is one that is a bit of a surprise to me, and that is the Pat McGrath Midnight Sun palette by Mothership 6. And the fact that I'm even slightly interested in this is Alicia's fault. I'm talking to you, Kinky Sweat. I had no interest in this palette whatsoever based on the images I was seeing when they first started releasing it and showing what the colors were and everything. It just did nothing for me. The color story was just not, it didn't do it for me. But frickin' Alicia, it doesn't matter what she's using, she's so good at coming up with pretty eyeshadow looks, she makes me want to buy everything that she tests out on her channel. Now, I'm not going to buy this palette because the Pat palette that still has my heart, if I can ever bite the bullet and spend that coin, is the Mothership 3. But thanks to Alicia, I definitely was giving this palette some consideration. Like, ooh, like, maybe I do like this color story, hey! Last but not least is the item that I'm going to buy, or actually it's a couple of items, and they are by Roen. This is a newer brand, not brand new. It's been around probably a couple of months now, but I only heard about it probably within the past month. The brand is not really getting that much hype or discussion here on YouTube, but I've been interested in it just from what I've seen, and I'm pretty much certain when the Sephora sale rolls around in November, I'm going to be picking up their 2 palettes and perhaps one of their eyeshadow singles as well. This is a new brand, so they don't really have that much stuff yet. It's a very curated line and it's really just these shadows and a couple brushes. But these eyeshadows are just so unique because they reflect in different size particles on your eyeball. And as someone who should have been alive in the 70s but wasn't, I feel like these shadows are giving me my living my best Studio 54 disco life as much as I can in 2019. Furthermore, these shadows remind me of some of my all-time favorites. In one, the limited edition Dose of Colors Desi and Katie The Girls palette. I adore those shadows, still have them, still use them, and I bought a backup. I'll link my video on those here if you actually care, but it doesn't really matter because, again, they were limited edition and they don't have them anymore. So the Roen shadows remind me of those, which are some of my all-time favorites, and I don't wear them on camera again because they're not available. But they also remind me of the Stila Original Magnificent Metal shadows, which came in a little pot. I have several of those too, and they're my favorites, but those have also been discontinued. They were a pretty polarizing product, but I always loved them. I found that they were quite easy to work with, contrary to most of their criticisms, because all of these products, the Roen ones, the Desi Katie ones, the Stila ones, you just apply it with your finger and you're going to be living your best. They're so beautiful. So it's exciting to me to have a new brand that's creating formulas similar to ones that I love that I can't get anymore, as well as in shades that I don't have already from those other brands. So as I said, I'm definitely going to be getting these Roen shadows. I'm going to get both their warm palette and their cool one. And I think I'm going to get their, I think it's called Summer Disco, which is just perfect because, again, my Studio 54 dreams coming to life. But I'm waiting for a sale because this brand is, I would consider it probably high-end verging into luxury territory, especially when you look at the prices of the single shadows. But I can't wait to try them when I actually do get them because I just have so many visions of looks I want to create and things I want to try with them. Anyway, that is going to do it for me today in terms of talking about new makeup releases that I think are garbage. Let me know if you had your eye on any of these things or if you felt the same way about them as I do. And other than that, I'm going to get out of here so I can rest my voice a bit. But I'll remind you once again, don't forget to check out Whitney's video. Again, it's been linked in the description box in case you missed the card earlier. I can't wait to see what she says in her video as well because we really had an embarrassment of riches when we were looking for stupid, unnecessary, uninspired products. So definitely check out Whitney. I think you're going to love her just as much as I do. And beyond that, I got nothing except a gentle reminder, and that is to never trust anyone who buys that Morphe 3503 palette. Alright? Bye-bye.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.